Check it out. What's going on here? Is it
Welcome
real?
to Random. Welcome to Random Assignment, everybody. This is the Public School Exodus edition. As the graphic says, look at that. And see there, it's a tidal wave. You see that, Corey?
Boom.
You see the kids are part of a tidal
Parting.
wave.
It looks like they're parting the sea because they're running away from the public schools.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's what it is. So anyway, welcome to Random Assignment, everybody. I'm Bob Bowden. That's Corey DeAngelis. He's with Reason Foundation. I'm with Choice Media. Thanks for being with us. And so Corey, what's going on with you, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Just hanging out, looking forward all day to our Random Assignment podcasts because
I know
it's my favorite thing to do each week.
I know, and it's let me just say I'm coming from a different location today. It may be shocking the viewers. I'm actually from my home today. Normally, I'm in my office. I've just decided to omit the 2-hour round trip and do it from home today. So, if there's a technical problem, that's why. But anyway,
well, it looks like it's working okay for now.
Pardon?
It's working okay for now, and your background looks good.
Yeah.
You don't have your baseball bat in the back, but
no baseball bat, but I have a liquor cabinet about 3 feet from where I'm sitting. So, if things get too dicey, I've got the rye over there. We're being far too silly. We have so much news this week. It was almost like last week there was a little bit of a deficit of news, and this week, I guess, with Labor Day looming, we have been exploded with news. So let's get started. So you suggested, actually, we had this discussion about what the top story of the week is. And Corey, you thought it might be all these districts with numbers showing the exodus.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, right? And we've been theorizing this for a long time that, people might see that they like homeschooling. Maybe that'll be a reason that they'll leave the public school system this year. Maybe it's just because they're figuring out that the schools aren't reopening. So maybe that will cause them to leave. So we've had all these theories flying around. And then another one was, well, the school reopening plans look weird, even if they are reopening in person, because the social distancing measures may not be all that fun for the students. So the parents could have been pulling their kids out. So we have new data supporting that theory from a lot of different school districts. And let's share the screen really quickly. We've seen a couple of districts in Arizona. And also here in Fairfax County Public Schools, Virginia. First time I saw this information was from the Choice Media Twitter account, but it looks like a parent or maybe it was Choice Media that sent in this.
No, we had a source. We had a source.
All right, it's blacked out. It's blacked out. You can't see it. So yes, an anonymous source sent a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, to the Fairfax County Public Schools, and they reported that as of August 28th, they've already seen a total number of people withdrawing to either private or home schools from the public school system, about 3,055 students. Fairfax County is a pretty large school district, so that's about almost 2% of the enrollment. So it's still pretty significant.
Noteworthy on that FOIA request answer, by the way, was courtesy, spelled C-U-R-T-E-S-Y. I just thought
courtesy, courtesy as a courtesy. Yeah, and they also said the total number of students who have withdrawal to, instead of saying the total number of students who have withdrawn from the school. Yeah, so there were a lot of grammatical and spelling errors. And we'll
can't have everything.
Their name is on there, so let's not call them out too much. But yeah, so we saw that it's about almost, I think it's 1.6 or round that up to 2%.
It's 1.6%. It's 188,000 kids in Fairfax. It's a big district, one of the biggest, top 10, I think, in the country. But and everyone makes mistakes, including spelling, including me. So anyway, just to be clear on that. But that said, all right. But moving on, a lot of other districts too, right?
Yeah, a lot of other districts as well. And I want to point out that this number could get bigger, right? A lot of people this was just August 28th, so people could start realizing that their schools aren't reopening in the way that they want or whatever. So this is just a number that could move, but it's still significant. And then also here in Detroit, Chalkbeat reported that Detroit school district, the public school district officials reported that they haven't been able to reach about 10% of their students for enrollment purposes.
Which I tweeted earlier. That's the biggest percentage I've seen in the country. I don't know about you, Corey, but 10%. I mean, that is an enormous percentage for budgeting purposes, et cetera. Quite frankly, I'm not surprised the number isn't even bigger than that, but I just hadn't seen any numbers that big.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen bigger numbers, but not for particular school district enrollments. We've seen bigger numbers when it comes to homeschool filings, but that's not synonymous with enrollment changes. So yes, this is the biggest one I've seen, and here are some of the others as well that we've seen recently. Chandler Unified Public Schools in Arizona, they reported about 1,656 fewer students enrolled than what they expected. So relative to their projection, that was about 3.5% lower in Chandler Unified, the second largest school district in Arizona. And we previously reported the biggest school district in Arizona, Mesa Public Schools, reported that their elementary school enrollment was down by about 10%, but overall enrollment was down by about 5.6%. So still not as big as the Detroit, but look, I mean, population typically grows over time. So that we're not seeing a growth, that we're seeing any decreases at all is pretty substantial. So we're seeing, anywhere from 1.5% to 10% across all these districts. I did some digging in Dallas Public Schools and found a similar reduction of about 3.6%. But I will say, since I reported this number, they've updated the numbers, and as of today, I think it's about a 3% reduction from last year, not a 3.6. But still, we're still seeing that persistent reduction. And then most recently, today, I think I saw this came out either today or yesterday, but this was a survey from August 20 to 23rd. It was in the field, a national survey done by Civis Analytics. I think it was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but they reported a pretty shocking number here. About 40% of parents of K through 12 students across the United States said that they disenrolled from their children from the school system or the school that they were originally supposed to attend this year because of school reopening plans. So that's a pretty shocking number to me. 40%.
That doesn't sound credible, though. Wouldn't we be seeing districts with numbers that were much higher than we're seeing? I mean, 40% is stunning.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what the way they phrase the question. You know, when it's a survey, Corey, sometimes the way you phrase the question implies, in fact, always has a big effect on the number that you get of people answering in the affirmative. So there's that anyway. So, but whatever it is, there it is, 40%.
And it could be any type of switch, right? This could be a switch from a private to a public. So maybe you were supposed to go to the private school and maybe it was too expensive. So you switched to the public school because it was free. Maybe you switched from a traditional public school to a charter. It doesn't really say, from where to where. So they even point out of those that disenrolled their children, 27% said that they were going to a public school. It says about a fifth of them, 20%, enrolled their children in a private school. But it doesn't give us very specific information. Something else that I thought was interesting, though, was they said that out of the people who said they disenrolled their children from the school, only 83% said that they would re-enroll their children once it's safe to do so. So that implies a 17% kind of long-term
which is,
reduction.
And in a way, that's really that's the big takeaway from all this stuff. It's not simply that, for a few weeks or a few months that COVID might change behavior. I guess it's interesting to talk about from a school funding, ephemeral, temporary point of view. But the real story here is the extent to which COVID changes permanently the education landscape, and that's the last issue to which you referred. And of course, we're only at the beginning of getting these real numbers, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more later in terms of, inevitably in terms of what really happens with the data. But with the numbers we're seeing so far seem to only be going up, and anyway.
Going up for homeschooling and down for public schooling. And the last piece of data, I won't bring it up on the screen, just to reiterate from last week, was that Gallup poll, nationally representative poll, suggested a 7 percentage point reduction in public school enrollment, which would be around 3.5 million children. So there's the update on the exodus. It looks like it's happening. But only time will tell how many people stay out of the school system.
All right, so let's talk now about politics, which normally, there's not this much national politics, in the Venn diagram intersecting with the school choice world, but what a difference a year makes. So let's start with the Republican convention, where school choice came up in not just the speeches we covered last week from Tim Scott and from other people who spoke at the convention, but then in the address by President Trump, the issue of school choice came up, and here are those remarks.
We must jail lawbreakers, and we must defeat their hateful ideology.
That's not the Trump convention. Yeah. Here it comes.
Biden also vowed to oppose school choice and close all charter schools, ripping away the ladder of opportunity for Black and Hispanic children. In a second term, I will expand charter schools and provide school choice to every family in America. And we will always treat our teachers with the tremendous respect that they deserve. Great people. These same liberals want to eliminate school choice while they enroll their children in the finest private schools in the land. We will fully restore patriotic education to our schools and always protect. We will always, always protect free speech on college campuses.
Okay, so you got some of the new part in that speech, not just the school choice comments that I introduced, but this new idea about indoctrination, which apparently the president is now adding to his school choice messaging. He's now talking about anti-Americanism that is being taught in traditional public schools. Well, it turns out he doubled down on that this week. In a press conference at the White House, President Trump went on more about the subject of indoctrination, and that's what this other clip is.
We must jail lawbreakers, and we must defeat their hateful ideology about this country, about America. We must teach our children that America is an exceptional, free, and just nation worth defending, preserving, and protecting. And that's what we want to do. They want to destroy our country. They're going to destroy our suburbs. But I think I've gone a long way from allowing that to happen. What we're witnessing today is a result of left-wing indoctrination in our nation's schools and universities. Many young Americans have been fed lies about America being a wicked nation plagued by racism. Indeed, Joe Biden and his party spent their entire convention spreading this hateful and destructive message while refusing to say one word about the violence. They didn't even discuss law enforcement, the police. The only path to unity is to rebuild a shared national identity focused on common American values and virtues, of which we have plenty. This includes restoring patriotic education in our nation's schools, where they're trying to change everything that we've learned. What we've learned, in fact, what most of you have learned, they want to change it. They want to change it for whatever reason.
So, Corey, I want to have for the public the conversation you and I kind of had quietly texting earlier today, when I was referring to this indoctrination as kind of a new messaging point for the administration, and you said they need to be careful with this messaging of indoctrination. Tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, it could backfire where people say, well, now you're just indoctrinating with your values instead of our values over here. So maybe there's going to be conservative indoctrination happening in the schools. But that's why I think he should focus more on the school choice message, because it takes care of indoctrination itself. If he's talking about like indoctrination in schools and that's why we need school choice, I'm totally cool with that. And I think that's fine for him to include that in his messaging. But if he's talking more about some type of federal intervention, saying that we have to have like certain curriculums in the school, I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. So I just don't want it to backfire in that way. But I think it is a powerful messaging tool as a reason for school choice. And, and I think you agree with this as well, that we don't want any type of child to be stuck in a public school that's, that where their parents are feeling like there's indoctrination going on, whether that's on the right or too far to the left.
Oh, that's right. Well, what I would say to that is that First of all, I think it's probably just a bully pulpit issue. I don't see anything on the horizon about we're going to create a national curriculum about conservative values that all public schools must. I'm not think until we can discuss that once that happens. I haven't seen that, but I think that if he phrased it a little differently, you might not share that objection. If he just said that anti-Americanism is being taught in traditional public schools and we should stop using public schools to teach anti-Americanism, I think that message is kind of what he really is getting at, and I think would also be hard for the Democrats to oppose. If they care at all about the middle of the electorate, in other words, and I think it would actually resonate with some voters too, who really, we see it all the time. There are examples in public schools where, we have teachers with Black Lives Matter, paraphernalia on their Zoom walls when they're talking to kids and all kinds of stuff like that. So, and then you look at what's on the website for Black Lives Matter. It's a lot more than just the phrase, the Black Lives Matter. It's a lot of political leftist ideology. I think if he just phrased it as we are tired of the anti-Americanism, that to me is what they really are trying to say and what they should say.
Yeah, I think that would be a little better, and especially if it's just a bully pulpit issue, I think that's fine. Okay. I'm just skeptical of any federal intervention, and it doesn't look like there's any proposals to do anything like that. So I was just interested. I mean, we talked about this on the show like a week or two ago when he came out with his second year, his second term agenda, and on education it was just two things. One was school choice, and the second thing was like American exceptionalism or something. But I think all he needs is the school choice thing because it takes care of the indoctrination itself.
All right. Well, to be clear, we have Joe Biden clips later in the show. We didn't want to slam it all together at once, so stay tuned, everybody. We'll get to Joe Biden. He had a press conference today, and we have clips from that later in our Random Assignment show.
Yeah, so we had a group that signed that formed a coalition that signed a letter from I think over 55 groups to fund students instead of institutions. They changed my my saying of funding students instead of systems to funding
really? They had the
families instead of institutions.
They
should have used systems.
How dare they?
This is a huge letter. I think it's sent to Congress, right? And it essentially just says, if you're going to do any more funding at the federal level to, any more stimulus funding or any other injections of federal dollars, it should go to the students and not the institutions. So several organizations on this. You see EdChoice, Reason Foundation is on it as well. American Federation for Children, tons of others. And if you want to sign the letter yourself as an individual, you can go to this button on the website, sign the letter to Congress. But that's the main idea here. And it's really showing that the idea of school choice is getting a lot of political steam right now. And there's a just huge momentum, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, to have the dollars go to the straight to the family so that they can get back on track this year.
Mm-hmm. It's an open question how much these kinds of things do, these letters that are signed and stuff. And, I guess it gets publicity. We're talking about it. Of course, it's pretty niche to us. But, I'm certainly for the idea. But, I see this done on the left all the time. I think people disregard that, too. But anyway. Okay, so let's move on.
But it got shared on Twitter everywhere, so that means everybody cares about it, right?
Generally, these things are shared by the people who already agree with the sentiment. Yeah. You never know; it reaches, I guess, some other people. All right, so we found an article that seemed pretty shocking. It's about education apps and the degree to which they're sending location data and personal information to advertisers. This is, say here, I like the secondary headline. It's a back-to-school sale on your data. And so, just covering the basic headline here, researchers from something called the International Digital Accountability Council. Wow, that's the IDAC, I guess. Wow, it looked at 496 education apps across 22 countries and found privacy issues with many of these services. Several apps were providing location data to third-party advertisers, also collected device identifiers that can't be reset unless you buy a new phone, you actually load this once onto your phone and you can't even reset it. Now, again, this is not specific to the US. It's talking about 22 countries, but it's still some alarming stuff. They also said researchers found 79 out of 123 apps. So I guess that's a pretty big percentage, maybe 2/3 or so, were sharing the data, user data, with third parties. 2/3 of the education apps sharing user data with third parties. The data going to advertisers could include your name, your email address, your location data, device ID. The study also found that more than 140 third-party companies were getting data from ed tech apps, the majority of which went to Facebook, followed by Google. So these, gee, how could they do anything wrong? Facebook and Google. At any rate, so it's not so much of a, it's almost the modern world we live in. And I'm becoming increasingly interested in privacy. I've had these kind of cliche conversations. I suspect you have too, Corey, about like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you care if you have no privacy? What's wrong with everybody knowing? What, are you doing something so illegal that you're worried about?
Yeah, who cares if the cops come into your house? If you don't have any drugs in your house, you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Right. And so it's an interesting kind of philosophical conversation to have. And, at some point about, there are reasons, even if you're not doing something wrong. Maybe you used to do something that maybe you're just doing something that you're embarrassed about. That's not illegal per se, but maybe you don't want your kids to know something about your life, or your relatives, or your spouse. Or I don't know. There are things that maybe we even used to do that we don't do anymore that would still cause us problems in life if they became known. And whatever, that's kind of my general stance on privacy. But where do you stand on this?
My take on all this stuff is that if it's a voluntary transaction, I don't have all that much to worry about. I mean, you can get into the conversation about how voluntary this is if everybody's doing it, and if you don't even know that your information's being shared. But I think for the most part, it's if you want to use the app, and that's kind of what comes along with the app. I think it's okay. And I think, right to privacy is mostly has to do with a right to privacy from the government, not so much from private actors. So I usually don't have much of a problem with this. And especially if you start thinking about like, what are the repercussions and what are the unintended consequences of making something like this illegal? Maybe the apps won't be available as much because they won't have the revenues coming in from this kind of the data.
I'll give you an example. This is about 8-9 years ago. I discovered through a source, and then I was the one that broke it, was that Google through schools was having this art program where you'd have elementary school kids design a Google logo. It was part of some sort of Google art exercise in schools. Well, to fill out to be part of the contest, to see if you got to be the winning logo designer, and you were a little 3rd or 4th grade kid, you would fill out and include your social security number along with your name, a number that will follow you your entire life, Google was literally collecting of these little kids, and it was done in public schools.
That's the problem. I think that's
yeah. So it was it was a pretty big. That's the kind of thing you could say like, well, if it's private industry, if it's not the government, who cares? What if it's a little kid who doesn't even know they're disclosing information?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That the main issue I would have with it is if you have a public school that you're compelled to go to and pay for through property taxes, and then they say, oh, well, we're doing this remote learning thing, and by the way, you're going to use this app. Yeah. And so that I would have an issue with that. And then my obvious policy solution would be, allow for school choice so that you can vote with your feet away from schools that have those policies that you don't like. So that's where I'd have.
I belabored this long enough. Okay, let's move on to North Carolina, Corey.
Yeah,
a couple of things going on there. I know most of our listeners and viewers don't live in North Carolina, but wow, this is kind of an interesting case study.
North Carolina governor put his budget proposal out, and one of his most specific proposals in there, you'll see it here in this budget line item, that he calls to cancel out the Opportunity Scholarship Program money that would go to families to attend private schools. So this is a current program that's on the books there, this would essentially allow existing
school vouchers. Yeah,
allow existing students to use it, but any future students would not be allowed to use it. So I called him out on his hypocrisy here. He sent his children to private school, or at least one of his children to private schools. And look, why is he fighting against allowing others to do so? So that came out in the budget. He's on the hypocrisy map. You also have the teachers unions going after the same program through the courts in North Carolina. And then also, on the other hand, you have the Republican lawmakers just introduced legislation that would expand school choice. The same program, they called to increase the income threshold from about 133% of the free or reduced lunch funding amount to about 150%. So this would allow for more families to be able to access the program. I think they also called for expanding the enrollment cap at the 2 virtual charter schools in the state, which currently there's a ridiculous enrollment cap of around 2,600 students at each virtual charter school in North Carolina, whereas on the other hand, you have thousands and thousands of kids attending virtual programs in the traditional public school system in North Carolina, which I will say also, in 2019, the legislature, the Senate and the House overwhelmingly voted to expand the cap on the virtual charter schools in North Carolina, but Governor Cooper vetoed that bill in 2019. And now you're stuck in a situation where families aren't able to access the virtual charter schools, whereas if you would have just not vetoed that last year, families wouldn't be in the same situation this year. And also,
the tuition assistance for this program is up to $4,200 per year, $4,200. That is what a savings for the taxpayer that a family chooses to take only $4,200 and remove their kid from the public school, spending far less than they would have in the traditional public school. If the families like it and it's better for the taxpayer, you've got to say, why would anyone be against this thing? But I pose that as a rhetorical question, Corey, because we know why some politicians are against this kind of thing.
Well, you got to protect the monopoly because the monopoly is more important than the individual students, obviously, Bob. But yeah, you're right. The funding for this program is only 44% of what they would have spent in the traditional public schools. So why are so many low-income families choosing to get less than half of their children's educational resources and losing the other 56% and keeping it in the public school system? It's because these schools are serving their needs better for less than half the cost. But yeah, that's what's going on in North Carolina. And other than that, I think this bill has some other things in it, such as giving some of the federal stimulus funding directly to families. I think it would be about $350 per family with if you have children, obviously. But
I hate for us to spend too much time on like when there's warring and bickering back and forth in one state about will it be the future be this policy or will the future be that policy? It's like, okay, why don't you guys figure it out and then we'll get back to us. But that said, it is interesting to see the two sides are lining up in a state like North Carolina, and now of all times, the pandemic time when so many families need different options. Whether their kids are special needs, whether their kids are otherwise traumatized from, either not going to school or they desperately do need to go to school or whatever the thing is, to use now as a time to reduce options that Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina is choosing this moment to basically reduce choice seems to me pretty odd. But anyway, let's move on. So Betsy DeVos had a special. I've never seen her do this before. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone can write and say Bob, you're wrong. But she actually they released a video message. All it was is basically a message to families on video of Betsy DeVos talking directly to the families about school reopening policies, about what the administration, including Betsy DeVos, what they're for regarding school openings. And so here's a segment of her comments on that video.
Let me clear up at least one thing right now. No one is suggesting that every single child must be behind a desk in a classroom full-time, or that health realities on the ground won't cause temporary disruptions. We do, however, believe that as a rule, schools must be open for in-person learning as an option for families who want or need it. More broadly, we believe families need more options than ever to find the right fit. If you want or need to send your child to school in person, we support you. If virtual learning is the best for your family, we support you. If you want to attend a school other than your government-assigned public school, we support you. President Trump and I support Senator Tim Scott's Bipartisan School Choice Now Act, which would provide scholarships to families to choose the best educational setting for their child. And teachers, if you want to teach in person, we support you too. If your health requires you to teach virtually, we support you. At the end of the day, we want everyone to have the choices to make the best decision for themselves. Each of you needs to be able to choose what's best for your own families because you know your children and their circumstance better than anyone.
And so I found this interesting. It's the non-coercion message she's giving there, Corey.
Yes.
And so she's saying, I support the families from having, you can choose online, you can choose in person, you can choose charter, you can choose private, whatever's best for you, you choose that. And by the way, teachers, if you're too sick or you have a health condition, you can't work, we support you. And if you're a teacher who does want to go back to work, we support you too. We support everybody. We don't make anybody do anything, okay? So the problem is that, and in fact, President Trump, by the way, in that convention speech we saw earlier, also mentioned we love the teachers. He said something like teachers are great people or something. It's good messaging for both of them to include support for teachers, right? But the whole concept of this non-coercion is to say that some people really are for coercion. I mean, in other words, I almost wish Betsy DeVos would have said that. You know, we're for not forcing anybody, whether it be teachers or families, from doing anything they don't want to do. Okay, the problem is the unions are the ones that do want to force families. You can see I'm pounding the table. It's my Khrushchev moment again. They actually do want to force and coerce people to go to schools that they don't want to go to. If you don't have the money to pay for private school tuition or a higher tutor or whatever else. So therefore coercion and we're not. And I almost feel like that could have brought home the concept a little more broadly, because that's ultimately at the end of the day, that's what this is about. And I know that's what you care about most deeply, Corey, the idea of don't force anybody to do anything, right? And that one side is for forcing and the other side isn't.
Yeah, she could have really drove that home, right? It was a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I think she just doesn't want to come out and attack the unions and stuff, and she just wanted to be a super friendly. I mean, I think that's just kind of how DeVos.
She was bathed in that warmth of that DeVos sort of wholesome tone that, you know, arguably that she sometimes embraces to a fault.
But I do like. I mean, I've kind of noticed a little bit of a shift, right? Like before, I think maybe a few weeks ago at least, some of the conversations from the administration were something along the lines of, you know, we got to get all the schools open. Now she's saying, doesn't matter. I mean, she's always said, like, let families decide, but she's making it even clearer now that, you know, if you want virtual,
she's still saying
fine.
The school should be open. Yeah, she's still saying the school should. She's saying, though, that if you don't want to teach and there's nothing wrong with you health-wise, I think what she's saying is if your choice is not to help us open the school, and we need an open school because families need that choice, get another job. Then just quit your job. You have, in fact, it's not that you're being fired, it's that you are quitting your job. If you say, I will not go to that building, when the building has to be open so families will have as an option, and I'm a teacher, I'm like, well, I choose not to go to that job, which is my job right now. I think what she's saying is then you're quitting. You've quit your job.
Yeah, but you have the choice to do that, right? And we're not going to force you to go to work if you don't want to go to work. Yeah, and she just said it in a really nice way.
You can quit. Yes, you can quit. There's too many teachers, though, that want to say, no, I want to be paid and not do the job. Like this is the key thing. The key thing is if you're going to have school buildings open to allow families to have the option we just celebrated, then you're going to have to make some people go to that building. And if no one wants to go to that building, then you got to fire them and find people who do. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I think that's about right. And, you know, if you don't have school choice, you know, I'm kind of erring on the side of, well, the school should be open then, and then people should have choice to go or not. I think that's kind of what she's saying. But, You know, if we do have school choice, though, I really don't give a what the schools choose. You know, if you choose to not reopen in person, I think that's fine, but only if you have school choice, right? That
that's you're skipping.
You don't reopen,
you're skipping
then,
down the
but we don't have that yet.
You're skipping ahead, exactly. You're skipping ahead. Sorry, but you said something prophetic. You said I was just talking about how Betsy DeVos is so often bathed in that warm, almost grandmotherly like tone, where she's not going to be too strident and attacking of anybody. That might have kind of changed, actually, this week. And that's in the next clip we're about to see.
Uh-oh, what she got? All right, check
Joe
it out.
Biden probably doesn't remember it, but in 1997, he gave an impassioned speech on the Senate floor in favor of school choice. Today, he's turned his back on the kids that we're talking about, and he's turned his face in favor of the teachers union and what they have to say and what they have to demand.
Whoa, drop the mic.
Go,
from Betsy.
DeVos.
Wait, isn't that a different Betsy DeVos than we've heard
yes.
today? In my opinion, that's a different one. First of all, she starts out by saying Joe Biden probably doesn't remember it. First of all, and anyway, I can only think what brilliant author might Secretary DeVos have been reading last year when she says maybe Joe Biden doesn't remember it. What forward-thinking, visionary might she be citing? Who at one point, when she says Joe Biden might not remember it.
No, maybe this.
Oh my goodness! Look at this. Does Joe Biden remember? Who wrote that? Oh, look at that. That was from 2018. And that was, we were doing digging on Biden. This was long before he had the nomination, of course, before any primaries. And we were doing digging on, I wonder what, he's had a long Senate career. I wonder what he's ever said on the subject of school choice before. Turns out, just like to which she alluded a second ago, a 2017 speech from the Senate floor. And he poses that question. The question is it not possible that giving poor kids a way out will force the public schools to improve? Now, as I pointed out in the piece I wrote later on, he does say, I don't know the answer to that question, but we should at least be asking that question or something to that effect. And so it's kind of like, it's almost like a bit of a waste of time. Like, hey, Senator, why don't you figure out what you think before you go to the Senate floor and just walk around and pose questions that you declare you don't know the answers to? But anyway,
it was feeling the water, like it's a good question to ask, and it's kind of,
right.
Of course, it'll cause them to improve. Let's see what other people think about it. He's kind of playing both sides. Trial
balloonish. You're trying to say, yeah. I guess, whatever. Maybe if I were a senator, I'd have some days where I'd openly ask, trial balloon questions too. I don't know. But the point is that I think Betsy DeVos did slightly mischaracterize what Joe Biden actually said. She said he gave an impassioned speech supporting school choice in 1997. I don't know if it was quite that, but he did pose a question of, is it not possible that public schools, traditional schools, would improve if if the families had a way to leave? So anyway, that's clearly different from the narrative that he then adopted in his, I guess, third presidential run when he, was saying this Betsy DeVos notion of charter schools is gone, with the gone, whatever. It certainly did change his tune in, but anyway, there you have it.
Joe Biden went to private schools himself and sent his children to private schools. So why can't other people send their children to private schools? Why is he calling to get rid of the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program for low-income students in the District of Columbia?
Well, at least Barack Obama didn't send his kids to private school and call for the elimination of the DC voucher. Oh, wait, actually, he did.
Wait, actually, yes, it's well, friends, right?
Yeah, right. Well, at least someone like Diane Ravitch didn't send her kid to private school and oppose.
Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Yeah, actually, she did. But it's okay. It's okay for her to do that, right? Because according to a news source interview with a professor with Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation for Teachers, asked this researcher about the research and what it says about school choice. So maybe this is why it's okay for Diane Ravitch to pick schools and Biden to pick schools, but not other students. Let's check out this clip.
That our leaders are taking this opportunity to undermine our public schools so drastically with this is why we need choice, right? Choice is hardly a new idea. And the research out there is pretty clear that it's worked okay for affluent parents and pretty poorly for everybody else.
Okay, but that wasn't Randi Weingarten talking. That was some other lady.
Randi Weingarten was interviewing a professor at the University of North Dakota, UND. She has a book that they were talking about blaming teachers. But they talked a little bit about school choice. And so her quote is that the research is clear. School choice is good for rich people, affluent people, but it's not for everybody else.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can think about what she means by that, but there's two interpretations for this. Right? Okay. One is, well, the smart people can pick, and they do a good job. Obviously, they can choose well, and everybody else, they just can't figure it out, and they can't pick good schools, which is the paternalistic kind of theory. But then the other one could be, well, it's good if you take advantage of the program and you use the program, but the kids who are left behind in the public schools might be worse for them. The problem there is that is completely backwards.
I don't think that's what she was saying. I don't think she was saying it's the left behind kids. I think she's saying choice itself doesn't work unless you're affluent.
That's the most charitable interpretation I could come up with, and try to help her out in as much as possible. Oh. But then if that's her argument, which I think you're right, it's probably not. The research isn't clear that the students left behind are worse. The research is pretty overwhelmingly positive that competitive pressures lead to the better outcomes in the public schools. Yeah. Made analysis in Educational Policy, an education journal, in 2019, peer-reviewed study analyzed all of the evidence on this. I think there's about 28 studies on this, and they find overall that the kids left behind in the public schools actually do better. So,
and as we mentioned in the Cartel documentary some 10 years ago, that sometimes a school just becoming smaller makes it better. So you actually have kids leave, they get to some sort of voucher or savings account program, they leave for private schools. The traditional public school is smaller, and it's actually suddenly more manageable than it was before. And that alone can have a positive effect. Now, if you ask most unions, they'll say, oh, no, we have to always be bigger and bigger because of economies of scale. They will constantly use the economies of scale argument to say we must always be larger. But then if you ask them about, then maybe we should merge your district with the next district over, because you just argue that economies of scale are such that larger is always better. Suddenly they flip and be like, wait, no, we shouldn't have a merger. No, that will get rid of redundant administration jobs. When we said the stuff about larger is better, that's different. That's not, it stops being better if you deal with talk about merging.
If it is, then why are people voluntarily select? If economies of scale are so important, then why are people switching through voucher programs with a lot less money to smaller schools? Yes. It's probably because the economies of scale are that argument isn't there.
Why are these crazy parents actually preferring smaller schools
with less money?
If the economies of scale, know that bigger is better. A bigger district is always better, right? Because of economies of scale. So anyway, there's a lot of hypocrisies when it comes to that stuff. All right.
I think you had a tweet response to when the American Federation for Teachers. First of all, they got her quote completely wrong. They said it doesn't work well for others, but she actually said everybody else. And then she said they said it doesn't work others or something. And they botched the quote, got it completely wrong. And I think you said something along the lines of, of course it doesn't work if you don't have the money to be able to choose a school. That's why we need school choice in the first place.
Yeah. She's like, choice doesn't work for poor people. I'm like, yeah.
They don't have vouchers.
You can't afford the choice. Then that's right. It's not working. You're actually not benefiting from choice. Good point. You don't have the money to do it.
So they give them the money. Okay, I guess that's a good argument for school choice, but they don't want that.
Right. Right. All right. So anyway, so we've done a lot of politics. Let's do some more. As we mentioned before, we had the Trump quotes and the Betsy DeVos quotes. Equal time now for Joe Biden. And I probably literally almost is equal time because this is a long clip. But I really I had like a Zen-like experience watching this clip, just to almost zone into Joe Biden's speaking style. Of course, he's reading the whole time. And part of it is, as a former professional prompter reader myself, I'm kind of attuned to this particular niche skill set as something of interest. But anyway, Joe Biden really is focusing on money. He gave it was today, he gave a press conference about school reopening and what needs to happen. And you're about to see him talking about like the first 20 things on the list of how many things need to happen for schools to reopen are money, 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 money. So here's Joe Biden.
Money's magic.
I'd be working with the leaders of Congress now, today, to pass emergency packages for schools so they have the resources they need in order to be able to open safely. Money for ventilation. I heard that a lot when I had all those healthcare experts up on the Zoom. Money for ventilation and other health measures, but also more money to hire more teachers. Every recommendation we got was they should be dividing into pods, smaller classes. Smaller classes mean more educators are needed. Keeping classes socially distanced, small. Money for more psychologists and counselors. I introduced legislation a long time ago I proposed legislation a long time ago. We have one school psychologist every 1,507 children in school. And the health care, the mental health that our children need now, the anxiety they're feeling at home, in going to school, not being able to go to school. The nation's superintendents of schools have estimated that they'll need at least $200 billion to support K through 12 schools throughout the year for safe reopening. And we need the money to hire educators as well for our four-year colleges and universities, for community colleges, for HBCUs, for minority-serving institutions. Democratic leaders are ready to get this done. They've already proposed such legislation. Mr. President, where are you? Where are you? Why aren't you working on this? We need emergency support funding for our schools, and we need it now. Mr. President, that's your job. That's your job. That's what you should be focused on now. Getting our kids back to school safely, keeping schools safely able to remain open once they open.
Safely able to remain open once they stay open.
Did he say 200 billion?
Anyway, and plus they already had. Okay, that's your job, Mr. President. Why? Because education's in the Constitution so many times, right? That's why it's his job. I mean, anyway. But Corey, people may say you and I are hypocrites because here we are making fun of Biden, saying money, 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 and all you and I do is say, "Oh, private school choice programs need to be funded." And I hold up a sign saying fully funded school choice. So maybe we are saying money, money, money all the time, Corey. Are we hypocrites?
No, we're saying money that already exists in the system, and we're saying to allocate it from institutions to families where it actually matters.
Oh.
He's Biden, and the other side argues to just dump more money into the system, even though that isn't going to change anything.
I mean, what did you think about that clip? I was, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's almost like, was it written by the union? It's almost like, you'd think Biden would benefit politically from just a kabuki theater of opposing the union on something, some sort of at least fake attempt to distance himself from everything the union wants. I'm not even saying that. It seems as if it's literally just, they printed out the union website and they're just reading from the AFT and the NEA. But,
he's just like, we need money and we need it now. Well, families need money and they need it now because the schools aren't opening. So let them go somewhere else.
Because his former boss, Barack Obama, did just what I'm saying. He at least had some talking points about charter schools that are good, should be supported. Like, where's that in Biden's, even that? Even, Cory Booker said that on the Democrat debate stage. Biden's not even willing to say anything like that, anything remotely not straight out of the union.
Does he say anything? Has he said in this in the past few months anything positive about charters? It's only been, I don't like the types that I don't like. I don't like the for-profit charters. The Sanders Biden Unity Task Force was calling to get rid of the DC voucher program and talked about opposing.
Not even a word about teacher accountability, even a vague, undefined phrase. Even the union sometimes says vague things about teacher accountability that are never actually implemented in any tangible way. Biden won't even say that. So anyway, so that's kind of my little rant on that.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Chicago. I think that's next up.
I love this one because we tweeted nuts, out man. This tweet that Chicago Teachers Union had a tweet, which I was stunned by. And then before I knew, you had figured out they deleted their own tweet, didn't you?
They actually took forever to delete it. They didn't delete it until I didn't see it until today. But here it is. Chicago Teachers Union blasted for completely supporting guillotine protests. So someone shared a video of making a guillotine, and I think it was in DC protests, and I'm trying to find. So like you can't even. Yeah, if you like try to go to their tweet.
No. But the link I sent. The link, that's not available. It's been deleted. But the link I sent you in our rundown actually has. It's a gatewaypundit.com source, which screen grabbed that original tweet from the Chicago.
Well, you know what? I have it here. I uploaded it.
Okay.
I didn't know that the other thing had it. But yeah, check it out.
Got it.
So this guy, Nick, I think he might be at the Washington Examiner, showed this video of the protesters making the guillotine. And this is the official account of the Chicago Teachers Union. And they said, we are...
Okay, wait a minute. But
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let's start with the fact of what this is. Protesters building a guillotine outside of Jeff Bezos' house, suggesting the death of Jeff Bezos, right? I mean, I'm not a huge Jeff Bezos fan. I'm not a huge, Amazon fan. But this is a public presentation about a murder. I don't know what else you
pretty much. I mean, you can say it's like... You can say it's just theater or whatever, but yeah, it's pretty morbid. And I mean, their response was just absolutely uncalled for. And they said, we're completely frightened by, completely impressed by, and completely in support of wherever this is headed. I guess they think that was funny because they used the word headed. Like, get it?
I didn't even occur to me.
Because of the guillotine, maybe they thought it was funny. But they got roasted and dragged for the past week on Twitter. So many replies just saying, oh, my God, this is the real account associated with the Chicago Teachers Union. And every couple of days, I would quote tweet them and say, I can't believe it's been 48 hours. They haven't deleted this tweet yet. And then I didn't see it until today that the tweet has been deleted finally. But it took them long enough. It took them almost a week to do
I mean, the analogies to the French Revolution as perhaps coming to America, this is, have been around. I've been hearing this more and more. The description generally that chaos doesn't lead anywhere good. That once you start, having mob rule, and there are places in America that have seen that, over the past several months, really, not just weeks. The French Revolution references have become quite tangible here. And the fact that the Chicago Teachers Union says they're completely in support of wherever this is headed, on a monument to the killing of a particular man. They say they are completely in support of wherever this is heading, the monument of killing him. That's what I've never seen anything like it.
Well, and there's another kind of a twist to this plot. Someone posted their pension fund. Did you see this? Their what's included in their pension fund. I'm trying to find the actual state. Anyway, their pension fund, their second largest domestic stock that they hold is Amazon. So people were like, "Oh God,
that is kind of funny."
I think it was like over 45,000 shares of Amazon in their pension fund. I think it was just millions and millions of dollars invested in Amazon. And here you go, them supporting the guillotine ritual outside of Jeff Bezos' house.
At the risk of making an analogy, if Amazon behaved like certain social media companies that block people who say things they don't like, if Amazon behaved like certain social media companies, Facebook and Twitter, that block people who say things they don't like, Amazon would stop delivering to the Chicago Teachers Union. There'd be no more packages delivered to the Chicago Teachers Union members. There'd be nothing. You couldn't order anything. Their Amazon Prime movies would disappear from their TV sets, right? How come they can't be canceled? Like all the social media people do, for that. Anyway, but not that I'm in support of that, but anyway.
I mean
right.
this went nuts, and yeah, they just recently took it down today. I think.
They finally deleted it. Finally deleted their celebration of at least the theoretical murder of a particular man. They finally thought, oh, maybe we shouldn't be completely in support of wherever this is headed. Anyway, that drives me crazy. It's just so beyond the pale. I mean, all right. Well, we're going to wrap up with something kind of fun, which is that, so there's a series, a comedy series, Judd Apatow HBO comedy series called Crashing on HBO. This is one of those, sometimes people like binge watch an entire thing. In my case, I watched like the first 2 seasons and I kind of dropped off, like whatever reason, back when it was, 2018, I guess, when Crashing on HBO was kind of rolling and releasing new episodes. Whatever reason, I just stopped. And then like, more recently, I'm kind of like getting back to, maybe I should watch some more Crashing on HBO. I'm watching, guess what? It turns out that even though the series has not aired new episodes since March of 2019, they had an episode where the lead character, Pete Holmes, actually predicted the whole homeschooling pod trend that we're seeing now. It's kind of amazing when you hear it. Have you seen this clip yet, Corey?
Nope, haven't seen it.
Oh, good. I was hoping you would get to see it fresh. All right. So anyway, this is more than a year ago. No one was talking much about any of these homeschooling pods, and yet this was in the script of an HBO show.
I have a TV idea.
Tell me.
It's about a guy who has kids, but the public schools stink. So he pulls them out and he starts teaching them in his garage. But he's really good at it, right? So word gets out and other neighborhood kids start coming to his school in his garage. And that's the pilot, I guess. I've written like an outline.
Homeschooled.
No, micro school. Homeschool.
Because his last name is Holmes, even in real life and in the
thing. I thought she was saying homes, like more than one home.
Oh, I see.
Holmes.
He's Pete Holmes. Yeah, Holmes. But the part that I tweeted out about that I thought was interesting, Corey, is just that you can write in a HBO script, something as mainstream as HBO, you can write a line where one character says, the public schools stink. And the other character, you don't even have to elaborate. The other character doesn't say, what do you mean? Or like what? Or needs explanation. The other character, it's so understandable by the culture at large. No further elaborations required. He just says, public schools stink. And she's like,
okay, keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, I just kind of thought once something becomes kind of so obvious to the culture that you need no elaboration for a mainstream audience to understand what you're saying, that's a marker of something.
Yeah, maybe they'll do a documentary on Prenda microschools.
Yes, exactly. All right, well, folks, you have squandered yet another hour of your time with the Random Assignment podcast and live stream. And thank you for that. Please share it on your social media before we get canceled. You can share it on your social media as to your heart's content, and we would very much appreciate that. And thanks for watching.
All right. Yep. Thank you guys so much, and see you next week.